Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something pretty specific, actually. Just a single ancient ethical rule. Really just a few words. But we were exploring how it was kind of shielded against being forgotten over time. This isn't just reading an old text. It's more like digging into a whole system, how language, memory science, and even storytelling all get tangled together, all to make a basic moral idea completely, totally sticky.
It really is fascinating, almost like pedagogical engineering, We're honing in on this one concise warning. It's about fraud in business from the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 10.
Okay.
But like you said, the text itself, that's just the beginning. Our sources show this complex structure underneath, detailed visual memory tricks for every single word.
Wow.
And then on top of that, this vivid modern story that's designed just to lock that verse into your head.
So our mission for this deep dive is to trace that whole layered system. How did they make it stick? The core idea we're wrestling with condemns dishonesty, right? It's Addo.
Stone and stone, ephah and ephah.
Yeah, and calls them vah an abomination, something detestable before, well, the standard of truth.
Exactly. It's like an intellectual immune system against integrity fading away.
Right.
We're not just looking at the rule itself, but how people were actually trained to internalize it.
Okay, let's get into the meat of it then. The core problem, fraud in trade. Why is this text so particular? It doesn't just say don't use a bad weight. It talks about dishonest pairs, two wrongs together. Why this focus on the dual nature of it?
That emphasis on the two nesses, stone and stone, ephah and ephah,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the key, I think. It signals this isn't just an accident, a slip up.
Right.
It points to something systemic,
Yeah.
pre-planned cheating. The text is really criticizing the whole setup of the dishonesty.
Okay, definitions first.
Mhm.
What exactly are these tools they were messing with?
So the first one is even, literally stone. And in this context, it means the stones they used as standard weights for buying and selling.
Like on scales.
Exactly. And when the text says quasi as a stone, that structure highlights a pair.
Mm-hmm.
You've got two of the same thing, two weights being used together somehow.
And the other measure?
That's the pph. This was a standard container for measuring volume, mostly for dry stuff like grain, flour,
Like a big scoop or bucket.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Its exact size might have changed over time, maybe 20, 30, even 36 liters. But the point is, it was a standard volume measure. And again, quasi and an ephah stresses the pairing. Two volume measures involved in the scheme.
Ah, okay. So the cheater needs two of each two stones, two ephahs, because they're running a two-way scam. One set of inaccurate weights and measures to cheat the person they're selling to, and another different inaccurate set to cheat the person they're buying from.
That's exactly it.
So it's rigged no matter what, buyer or seller, you lose.
Precisely. It's not error. It's manipulation by design. And the text says the result of this kind of organized cheating makes the whole action ppeifah utterly disgusting, abhorrent.
And the verse really hammers it home, doesn't it? It ends by saying both of them, the stones and the ephahs together.
Yep. Covers both weight and volume fraud in one go. Leaves no wiggle room. The ethical demand is absolute.
Okay, so that's the core warning, but then there's this whole other layer you mentioned, the memory system. How do you make sure that sticks?
Right, because reading it is one thing. Making sure the idea, the words themselves, stay lodged in people's minds for, forever. That's another challenge entirely.
This is where it gets kind of weird and wonderful with the psychology tricks. Our sources lay out these really specific, almost bizarre visual associations, tying abstract words to concrete pictures. Let's walk through them. How did they make these key Hebrew words memorable?
Okay, so you need something solid for abstract thoughts.
Ah.
For the stone, the memory hook is pretty straightforward. Just picture a single, heavy, hard stone. Grounds it in reality.
Makes sense. What about ʻeifah, the volume measure?
The cue there is just measuring cup. But the key isn't just the cup itself. It's the action. Picturing filling it, leveling it off carefully. The mental image is all about the act of measurement.
Okay, simple enough. But what about the consequence word, ʻeifah? Abomination. That's abstract. How do you picture that?
This one's much more intense. They don't try to visualize revulsion directly.
Mm-hmm.
No, they create a kind of semantic pathway. The image is deliberately disgusting, maggots with flies. That image leads your mind straight to rot, decay. And that feeling of decay, that connects directly to the feeling of revulsion.
Whoa, okay, yeah. That's vivid. They really didn't want you shrugging this one off, did they? But what really gets me is how they even did this for the little words, the grammar bits. Those are always the hardest to remember.
Exactly. Like kiagam you. It just means also or even. How on earth do you make a picture for also?
Right.
The association they came up with is bubblegum.
Bubble gum. Seriously.
Seriously. Because gum sticks another thing onto what's already there. It's the mental glue for also. It's kind of brilliant in a quirky way.
Huh. Okay, I can see that. Bubble gum for also. And what about vah-EH-ven, meaning both of them, the pair?
That gets visualized as folded paper. You picture a sheet folded in half, creating two layers, one on top of the other. That captures the idea of the pair, the two things taken together as one unit.
Folded paper for both. Okay. And the last one, the ultimate standard, YHWH.
Here, the memory source is very clear. No image. The absence of a picture becomes the memory cue. It's deliberate, respecting the tradition against depicting the divine.
So the lack of an image reinforces its nature as the unseen ultimate reference point.
Precisely. It's a very powerful, respectful way to handle it within the system.
Okay, so we have these 5 individual memory hooks: stone, measuring cup, maggots, flies, bubble gum, folded paper, and the no image. But you said they need to be connected, right? Into a scene.
Exactly. These hooks are strong, but they're still separate. The system isn't complete until they're woven into something dynamic, a story you can't easily forget. And that's where the narrative part comes in.
Right, the story makes the whole sentence make sense together. Which brings us to this vixen guard character. Why a fox? What's the connection to ancient weights and measures? It sounds very modern.
It is modern, and that's part of the design. The vixen guard and the unjust measures is that final narrative layer. It contextualizes everything, and the character choice isn't random. The vixen, or fox, is a coded signal for the number 20.
The chapter.
The chapter number, exactly. And the story says the vixen guard carries a flashlight. The light, or lux, in the mnemonic system, stands for the number 10.
Verse 10, so the character herself tells you where to find the rule. Proverbs 20.10.
Bingo. It encodes the location right into the story's setup.
Clever. Okay, so the vixen guard arrives with her flashlight. Chapter 20, verse 10. What does she find? What does the light expose?
It cuts through the darkness onto this cluttered workbench. And right there, she sees the tools of the fraud. First, the 2 stones. The story even details how they're fraudulent. 1 stone, slightly shaved down, lighter than it should be, to cheat when selling goods.
Okay.
The other one, secretly weighted, maybe with lead inside, heavier than it should be, to cheat when buying raw materials. It's the perfect dishonest pair.
And the measuring cups must be there too.
Next to the stones. And again, the specific fraud is laid out. 1 cup has a hidden false bottom, a thin plate, making its capacity smaller for sales.
Sneaky.
And the other cup, it has a little scratch, a misleading mark on the side to trick the eye when measuring stuff coming in. So you see the dual corruption right there, weight and volume.
Okay, the scene is set. Now, how do the other memory words get woven in? Where's the abomination, the maggots and flies?
The story embodies that corruption with a single, literal fly. Just 1 fly buzzing around the workbench in the dark before the guard gets there. It's trying to, nudge one of the fake measures. It stands in for that whole maggots, flies, rot visual, representing the small, persistent, creeping nature of the dishonesty.
And that fly triggers the next mnemonic, the sticky one.
It does. As the fly tries to fiddle with the weights, it lands on something sticky right beside them. What is it? A piece of chewed-up bubble gum.
Ah, the bubble gum, representing also.
Exactly. That adds that final sticky layer to the whole corrupt setup. The fly gets stuck.
And the gum is stuck to the folded paper.
You got it. The bubble gum is stuck firmly to that folded piece of thick paper, the visual cue for both of them. So the fly, embodying the corruption, is now physically trapped, connecting the fraudulent pair of items, Schneeham, via the act of adding Joygam, its corrupting influence. The whole scheme is literally stuck together.
Wow, okay, so the flashlight beam, the 10 lux, verse 10 hits this whole scene. The trapped fly, the 2 bad stones, the 2 rig cups, all stuck together, and the presence of YHWH, the standard.
That's represented by the quality of the light, the atmosphere. The story calls it silent holiness. A presence where even the darkness can't hide the truth. The light makes the hidden fraud undeniable. No image needed.
And the vixen guard.
She sees it all, understands the setup immediately, and records her finding. The narrative arc lands exactly on the Vosa's meaning. This systemic cheating, using both the weights and the measures dishonestly, is an abomination. By layering the text, the visuals, and the story, the rule becomes incredibly robust in memory.
It's amazing, really. This deep dive shows that these ancient ethical warnings weren't just meant to be, passively read. They were active learning tools preserved through this really intricate mnemonic system. It teaches you that real integrity isn't just about avoiding one mistake, it's about spotting and fixing the systemic problems.
Absolutely. The complexity of the method really underlines why the rule matters so much. The focus is on that dangerous pairing of wrongs, the unjust weights and the unjust measures. It's the architecture of the dishonesty that draws the strongest condemnation.
So the story of the Vixen Guard wraps up with her documenting the fraud and leaving to protect the correct scales, the honest ones. But the source material gives us one final image, doesn't it? It's a little unsettling.
It is. Because while the guard moves on, the scene she discovered, it lingers. The bubblegum is still there, slowly hardening, holding the evidence.
The bad stones and measures haven't been destroyed. They're still sitting there on the workbench.
Still there. And the description mentions the sweet smell of decay in the air. And then a final detail, a faint tremor. The fly's wings, perhaps, maybe another fly approaching as dawn nears. It suggests the temptation, the potential for corruption, isn't gone for good. It was just exposed for a moment.
So the question kind of hangs there for us, for you listening. What happens next? What might you do when the sun comes up and the chance to use those unjust measures, or perhaps ignore them, presents itself again?